Well, we're back. It's another Monday, another live episode of Talking Preps. Got my man Gunter Brewer, Louisville assistant football coach, former Chapel Hill football coach, former Philadelphia Eagle football coach. And it says here that you coached Randy Moss, Des Bryant, and Justin Blackman all in college. Is that true, Coach?
That's a true statement. I don't know how much coaching was required in that. I think that's probably more recruiting. Let the DNA take its shape.
And you have
all
a
three
special
were
name.
very special.
You have a special name for your most talented players. What do you call them?
Oh, we call them the freaks. Fresh receivers, exciting all crowds smoothly. So
absolutely. Oh, wait a minute. Say that again. What is it?
Fresh receivers, exciting all crowds smoothly, and that's crowd spelled with a K.
Yeah,
Get that one. That's phonetically that way.
And if you guys notice something a little different, we got my man Chris Hughes out in Texas. Tell us where you are, Chris. Oh, Chris has no sound. Chris, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. Yeah, he's going to log back in.
Well, speaking of your receivers, Randy Moss, Gunter Brewer, check it out. Randy Moss, Des Bryant, Blackman. I mean, a lot of people are considered three of them maybe the best ever in college as well. Who is your most talented receiver you've ever coached, and who's your favorite receiver you've ever coached? I'm going to put you on the spot, and it cannot be a Louisville guy. Can't be. It's got to be someone in the past. I want to know it. I don't want you.
Oh, wow. Well, probably the most talented guy I ever coached would have to be Moss, because of the fact that, one, he's in the Hall of Fame, which is extremely difficult to get in. Two, he could pick up basically any sport, including track. I know he qualified, or was real close to qualifying, I should say, for the Olympics while we were there at Marshall. The guy, he and 2 or 3, 4 other football players just picked up some guys and went over, and I want to say one day just whooped the stew out of the basketball team. Now, I don't know whether they were that bad or they were that good, but I know the cat is he's just a phenomenal athlete. And then I'll say one of my favorites is is in Charlotte or just left Charlotte, be Nate Poole. Nate was a guy that, came to Marshall as a basketball player, but actually converted to football and, did a tremendous job there in the Charlotte area. Was at Wingate, now just moved over to A&T, and just a tremendous person, family man, just a guy I love to death and love his passion for the game and his passion for kids. So that's probably 2 of my favorites right there.
All right, now we're going to try to bring my man Chris Hughes in again. Now, Chris, tell us where you are, man.
Well, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
All right, great. I am at Temple High School here in Temple, Texas, right in the middle of the Central Texas region on Interstate 35, kind of halfway between Dallas and San Antonio. I'm at Temple High School. You can look back here at Wildcat Stadium, and this is just one of the phenomenal stadiums in the state of Texas. And it's phenomenal from the 80s and 70s era. It's not the big 26,000 seater. You think of Allen, Texas, but this thing can easily seat about 18,000, and it's a ruckus environment on Friday nights. I kind of cut my teeth volunteering here back in 2003. So, I mean, you want to talk about a region that loves football. This is a football crazy part of Texas.
Absolutely.
It looks like they're practicing social distancing at the stadium right now, too, so that's pretty good.
Absolutely. Guys, do you have any questions for the panel or Coach Brewer? Put them in the comments, send them through. We'll put them on the screen, give them a chance to answer. But Gunner, let's get right to it. Families are nervous right now about recruiting due to COVID-19. I may miss my season. I miss my spring. What advice would you give to mom and dad and little Junior out there about how to navigate this new recruiting world we're in?
Well, hopefully we'll get to play, so that will take care of itself. And you know how the recruiting world goes, having great athletes in the family yourself. So if we play, then we won't have to worry about it, because we'll continue to get tape and huddle and the way all kids get recruited as they do now. The high school coaches, especially in that area, do a tremendous job of using the resources such as yourself and the show to get the information out there, to us. But if we don't play, then the virtual camps, the workouts, the things of that nature that you see more and more that are coming out right now, that I think that will be the new age, and we're finding out new things such as Zoom, such as what we're doing now, the virtual visits, the virtual everything. It's going to turn into that. but it will be uncharted waters if we don't play. Kind of what we're going to do with the athletes that we have. Are they coming back? Were they allowed to become back? And then can we add a new group that some of these kids have already mentioned that they're wanting to go somewhere or committed, obviously haven't signed. Well, what do you do then? So there's a lot of unanswered questions, and they have the right to be nervous. I just think what they have to do is prepare themselves for the unknown and be obviously academic eligible. That's first and foremost. And then the rest will take care of itself. Everybody be in the same boat.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk to a ton of high school coaches in our state and around the country. What is your feeling about high school football being played this fall and then college football? I know you touched on that a little bit, but what do you really think is going to happen?
Yeah, while we've got Chris on here, I know we were talking before we went on the air, and one thing I think we need to do is raise the awareness. I've seen quite a bunch of great things from y'all's site about the pay for teachers. I can brag on a lot of guys in that area, and several people are on the screen. They give their lifeblood. My mom was a high school teacher. My dad was a high school coach and a teacher. That the amount of time they spend with these young people is tremendous, but the amount of pay is nil. And Chris was talking about, like I mentioned, about what he got even as a volunteer is more than what we pay some of the guys that just use it as a stipend. So one of these days we're going to have to wake up and understand that a coach has a lot of influence, with these young people. And hopefully we will be able to play. I think high school is going to take a little bit. It's going to be a filtration system. I think the NFL is going to set the standard. I think it'll filter down to the colleges, and I think that's going to be based on the states and the conferences. I think you could see some schools in certain conferences not play and others do play. And then I think by high school, you're going to see people take that from each state and say, well, if NC State, Duke, North Carolina, Wake, all of them are playing in the state of North Carolina, plus some others, then I think we can take that example and use it also, whether it be fanless or whether it may be just parents, and that's it. No, just outside family. I guess would say that point to social distance. It's interesting.
Coach, being a coach in Charlotte, you're one of the first coaches that ever came through to my school when I was at Harding. And we didn't have anybody at the time. And you're always great at building relationships, but you're the best recruiter that I've ever been around because I think you care about people. And talk to me a little bit about your chameleon ability. I feel like any situation you walk into, you're like the hippest guy, you're the coolest guy. It's like you're our friend right away when we meet you. Is that just a gift, or is that, something you had to learn to do?
Well, I have to give credit to my mom and dad. Like I mentioned, both of them were high school teachers, and my mom, she taught, and she also did outside things such as theater and speech. So she got me involved in things in school other than football, which I think is great when kids, are out there and do other sports and do other things. But my dad was great about that too, getting involved in kids' lives. And, my dad grew up on the wrong side of town or the other side of the tracks, literally on the other side of tracks. And his best friend was black. And I don't know how cool that was back in the 50s and 60s. I can imagine it wasn't very, cool and acceptable. And so, and when I was raised in sports, that helps you just blend everything together. People see it as a team and not necessarily see the color or size or speed or anything else. That's your teammate. So that helped me go into schools and understand that everybody is a person. Take them for what they are. Person, get to know them before you make judgment. And then over a period of time, then you can set your example on what you think they are or not. But, guys like yourself were so welcoming in Charlotte, whether you had a player or not, it were treated the same way. So I think it works both ways. You got to understand when people are accepted in the school for whoever they are, whether it's Wingate or whether it's whatever school you want to mention, that means a lot to a person, because that coach one day may be the head coach somewhere else. Or then, like you said, you had just great players, at different times, where one year you may not have any and the next year you have a lot. So I think people got to understand that and not just blow in a school and blow out. They have to build relationships with kids, parents, anybody that's involved in the recruiting process, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, you're one of my favorites to ever break bread with, and I'm gonna be honest with you. You know, a lot of you college football coaches make a little bit more than us high school football coaches, and I wouldn't take out too many coaches. I would definitely take you out to break bread with, just because you're an unbelievable person to be with, and but I'd make other people have to pay, but I'd pay for it. Now, one question. You've been around the Charlotte area. You've been around all these different places. I think that you're really great at finding that one spot to go eat at, because I see you posting on social media all the time. You're coming back to Charlotte for one night. You're hungry. Where are you going to eat at?
Oh, wow. Well, unfortunately, we don't have my favorite food. Well, we do. It's just far away from where I am now. And I would say if I pulled up, I'd say it's bow time. So I could eat Bojangles. I'm going to tell you 3 meals a day, every day, all day. So I know that's not the most fanciest place maybe in Charlotte, but it's my favorite. I'm either getting the Cajun filet combo with that large sweet tea, or I can go for the tenders, which are off the chain, or I can get that bone in, but I'm going in the restaurant to eat that because that can kind of get messy driving around in a car. There's so many great. Charlotte's a foodie town, so it depends on what you want to eat. I know been a few spots for you, and most of the out-of-way spots are probably the best in my opinion, other than some of the name brands.
Hey, Coach Brewer, good to see you again.
Hey, Gary, good to see you.
Yeah, one of the scenarios that North Carolina may be considering is to play football in the spring. If that happens, how would you recruit North Carolina? Would it be any different than you have in the past?
No, I don't think so. And I think universities are doing the same thing. That's been thrown around. The problem with it was on the college level was the fact if you went in the spring and then went in the fall, you'd be back to back. And I assume you would have the same problem if you did it in high school. How could the kids hold up to a back-to-back season like that? But hopefully they're talking about having some kind of, immunization or something that would help, or maybe it's calmed down by then. But I'm not sure. But the recruiting factor of it, I don't think it's ever going to change. Just the season may change. You're going to see a drastic change in the calendar like you did many years ago that changed the landscape of college football, way it's recruited. And I don't think that's over. I think different things as we hit the scene here, when we find out when we're playing, how we're playing, and the way we're playing will make a big difference in what goes on with the personal touch to recruiting, like was mentioned earlier. So we do so much on video now and all the services. I mean, there's so many great ones in the state of North Carolina and in general where you get the information. And coaches, Sam knows, they get the information out so well that it really helps us on our end.
Nice to mention some of the top receivers you've coached in your career, but we know those don't come along all that often. When you're out recruiting, what would you say the top 3 characteristics you look for in a recruit?
Well, but besides the ability to handle college work, that means the eligibility factor. Each kid has to be able to handle the grind in the classroom, because it is a completely different aspect as kids grow up. But for me as a receiver, just talking about things you're looking for, competitiveness is one that I think is very underrated. People want to put size and speed, and those things are very important. But competitiveness is extremely important. How he plays in the game, just some things you can't measure. Everybody put together a highlight tape, but will the kid come across the middle? How does he perform on 3rd down, 4th down? So that means heart, and that heart's kind of hard to measure. Those are 2 aspects, obviously, that you can't put. You got to get to know them, watch a lot of tape, and ask the coaches and people around them. And, you're hired to catch the ball. I think that's a pretty no-brainer, but there's been a lot of receivers taken, even in National Football League, that really didn't have great ball skills. So I think that's something that each guy, goes without saying, needs to have.
How you doing, Coach Brewer? Apparently we lost Chris, so I had to come up off the bench to talk with you a little bit. We hear a lot about specialization, and just want to get your thoughts, on your preference as far as athletes playing more than one sport or just being specific to football and football-based activities year-round.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a huge component on kids getting involved in everything, not just sports. But since we were talking about sports, I think each kid can develop a different skill set by playing a different sport. Baseball is probably one of the best ways to judge tracking a ball, hand-eye coordination, judging the ball as it comes off the bat, how he tracks it and can he catch it and can he run it down. So it's much like obviously catching a pass, but you stand in a batter's box and a 90-mile-an-hour is coming at you. What's his judgment time, his reactionary time, hand-eye coordination again. But and in basketball, of course, change of direction. Does he have any handles? Can he dribble? Can he drive? How does he do versus competition? Different type of competition. So not to even mention track, and what a tremendous sport for everything that you do. So I would think a kid would really fall short if he didn't. Lacrosse is a fast-growing sport that has a great crossover for every sport. Some of the sports I'm not very good at or don't know as much about. But I do know this: anytime you compete at anything, I don't care if it's tiddlywinks, you're going to try to beat somebody's rear end, and that competitiveness, that person wants to be the best he can be doing it. I think that brings out the best in everybody as team sports where we work together, meet new people. Okay, it crosses all boundaries. Sports does such a great job of letting us know white, black, green, yellow, 5'2" or 8'5". It really doesn't matter. Once you're on that team and you're competing, get to know people, it breaks down barriers that we so badly need in this country right now, is evident of what's going on.
I agree 100%. And I always, those lacrosse kids, like you said, and I think that's a great point. And even like a Chris Hogan, think of some of those guys that have been successful in crossing over, and some of these shorter routes, like a pivot route, or guys you see like Julian Edelman, you really, excel at that. I think that does come from, playing multiple sports, and we see how that, has an impact in our game. We had a big conversation last week on kind of the merits of 7-on-7 football. As a former receiver coach, I strongly advocate for 7-on-7. I love some of the work that you get, the route running and things that you can do to make yourself better. Others on this panel, however, don't seem to share my same enthusiasm for 7-on-7 football. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think Texas is a great, since we lost Chris, was out in Texas. They have a 7-on-7 state championship, and some other states do, I know it's in and around. I'm a proponent of any time that a young man can be involved in a sport and continue that sport. I think that's good. I want to kind of temper that with the coaching part of it is crucial, and the understanding that, it's like AAU basketball. It can go on forever and ever and ever, and that's where some of it gets to be a little bit of overkill. But I like 7-on-7. I like the competitiveness. I like, especially in my position, all the skill sports they're out there doing it. And the problem gets into being, is you mentioned in recruiting, when the kids start crossing over different schools on different teams, and then they start recruiting each other or whatever happens. That's where people get real nervous, because they're playing on an all-star team and then that way. But I would be a huge proponent of 7-on-7 as far as that goes.
I agree 100%. And I think that when we talk about 7-on-7, one of the big things I think that's a point of contention is the translation and correlation of 7-on-7 from playing, whether it be club or high school, to equating to actual 11-on-11 scholarship. So that connection between playing 7-on-7 to receiving a scholarship for your play on the field, how do you determine, or is there some actual merit to that?
Well, I think that's part of the evaluation process that, no one's rushing. So it's kind of hard to evaluate a quarterback from that standpoint, but it is a piece of the puzzle, just like a receiver. They're catching, they're running, all the things that you want to see people to do, that you get to see it. We loved 7-on-7 camps at every institution that I've been to so far, and I've been to a few, because you get to evaluate certain kids doing certain things, and then you got to have a plan for the big skill, I call them. While the little guys are doing that, the big guys need to be doing something too. But it's a great way for kids to stay involved, get exercise, get ball skills, get throws, get everything else. Again, you just got to make sure I'm more a proponent for the school doing it than I am for the all-star teams. Although I'll take it if I can't get the other, because I do love the high schools coaching their guys if it's available at that point.
Coach, you've covered a lot of things that I want to ask you about, but we have a lot of young kids watching, and what are the things that they should and shouldn't be doing that can get them onto your radar?
Well, I think first and foremost, any young man or young lady out there needs to understand that the sport does not last forever. Enjoy your time as an amateur and put a lot of time into the academic preparation part of that. That'd be your SAT, ACT. There's a lot of programs out there. I don't care if you're well-to-do or you don't have much money at all. There's a lot of programs out there to help both of the spectrums as far as that goes. So I would concentrate on what's going to get me there and then what's going to keep me there. And that part of it is huge. I think we put the cart before the horse a lot of times when it comes to that. Not everybody, but I'm as guilty as the next guy as far as that goes, because we're concerned about, who can make plays. But I think nutrition is something that's a very big tool that is vastly missing in our school systems, public or private. That the lunch period is, it's very quick. You run in there and you see what they're eating. It's just like me on the road. It's it's fried food. It's stuff that these kids are growing and they need certain things to grow. So we need to make sure that breakfast is very important. That their nutrition, they need to be taught that from an early age, and you'll reduce some of the problems that we have. I'm sitting here, you're looking at him, problems with eating wrong. So it's harder that way, and it costs millions of dollars to correct. So if we get it right from the first part, we'd be in great shape. The other thing I think would develop your body is not only nutrition, is the weight and conditioning and flexibility. I think kids and parents, we all don't give enough time to flexibility, stretching and modalities, and there's a lot of things you can do that way to really help your body stay healthy and produce as you're a growing person. Those bones hadn't formed yet or hadn't completed. You've got muscles, you're growing. There's a lot of things going on with a young man and young woman's body at that particular time. So I think we have to be careful about that and how they develop and sleep. That's the other one that is a missing component. Everybody gets on those sticks at night, and then next thing you know, it's 3 and 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and they're trying to get up at 8 or 7 and get to school, especially in Charlotte, starts early. That's not a good combination. So I think we got to really work on the holistic person as part of that, and that's not even the mental health part. It's just that physically, before we even touch the sport, they have to understand what it takes to be a premier athlete. And it's easy when you're a gazillionaire, a pro athlete. You've got the resources to do that. It's hard when you don't have resources to do that. But we need to start focusing more on that than we do as a society and as coaches and as administrators, and not just give it words. We need to put something to it.
Coach, those are excellent points. So a kid's been recruited by you, and we all know that you have targets of, this is the number one. If I'm going after a receiver, this is my number one and number two. So they're on a board. How does a player know where he stands in your selection process?
That's a great question. I would, first of all, as a very simple answer, ask. There's so many offers out there with people recruiting nationwide now because of Huddle and these other video streams and the ability, especially in COVID, to get out, see more people on video and do things of that nature. So, but people need to communicate very well. And as we all know on the screen, there's a lot of false things out there, whether they're commitments, whether they're offers, whether they're committable offers and non-committable offers. I mean, it's got me confused, to be honest with you, with all the things that are going on in recruiting these days a little bit on some of the stuff that's out there, whether it be services. And as you know, we can't talk about recruiting as far as the kid. We can, talk about the kid and what he can play, what he can do and can't do. So it really makes it tough on us you could go out there as a kid and say whatever you wanted and say whoever offered you, and no one's going to say anything against it from our end because they can't. So it's really kind of a backwards deal as far as that goes. But with technology we have today, I mean, there shouldn't be too many people hidden as far as not knowing about them. It's just going to be they haven't yet quite developed, or maybe they're not in a situation where they're not at one of the larger high schools or as competitive a high school that some of the others that are easier to, I guess you would say, evaluate. And that's no different than in the pros. My short time there in the NFL learned quite a bit about how people scout and what they look for in the NFL. And the same thing, they're still talking about quality of play and as a Power 5 guy or a G5 guy or, a small ball guy, even JUCO. I mean, you evaluate them all, Canadian League, XFL, CFL, you name it. They're looking at them all. So they have the same things, problems that we have in college and anybody that's evaluating talent anywhere. Same questions.
Thank you, Coach. It's kids have a lot of, and parents have a lot of questions about recruiting. And one of the things I've asked some other coaches, and I'd like to ask you, you've hit on many of those things, and that's how do you find a player? One of the things that I've been concerned about, and I think a lot of us are concerned about, is some players and parents seem to think that if I jump to another school, I'm going to get a better look. I'm going to be able to be recruited. Could you tell us if that's important? And also maybe what are the main things that you use as tools to find players?
Well, I'll say this. There are certain situations that is conducive for a young man or young lady to be in a certain system. And I'll use an example. If I was let's take what school in our conference. Let's take Georgia Tech. What a tremendous, great program, academically, location, a lot of things. Well, they went from a triple option to a spread, throwing the football. So you had a lot of kids there that were not going to fit the system that was going to be in place. And then new staff had to recruit to a system that was completely different. So you could say the same thing for a high school kid and or a pro kid. It really, a person, it really wouldn't matter if the system didn't fit. Then you would have to say, well, I need the opportunity, maybe go somewhere that would fit my skill set or system. Now people start to get very narrow with that and saying, well, my quarterback's not as good as this quarterback over here, so let me go over here. That's why you need rules in place at a certain point in time, and it's hard to make that many rules, but something needs to be put in place where kids don't just keep a revolving door and keep going to different colleges or keep going to different high schools. They take the path of water. Then you don't teach them anything. But I do not think it's fair sometimes for a kid to be stuck in a situation, male or female, in any sport, if it just changes completely. And I don't have the answer to that, but I do know that it is an issue in high school, and it's becoming or has become an issue in college. And as long as they've got contracts and rules in place in the pros, then they'll keep control of theirs. But as soon as you open the floodgates, I think we've opened up Pandora's box if we allow people just to go because little Johnny's not real happy or Missy or whoever in that situation.
Coach, one of the things that a lot of high school kids and their parents don't understand is the difference in the level of talent at a Power 5 school versus a non-Power 5 school. What is the best way to explain that to an athlete or their parent?
Well, the pro level is a great way to explain that, is that they get the elite of the elitists, and you get to draft those people and pay them lots of money, and they still screw up. So there's still people who fall through the cracks, but it boils down to resources. And by having that resource, you're able to attract the best of the best. And if you look at the Power 5 schools and their budgets compared to the other schools, that are in G5 or 1AA or whatever the terms are now, Division II, and so on and so forth. The resources aren't there, so therefore you're not attracting that type of kid as a whole. And you may still get one or two of those kids that are diamond and roughs that develop later, or maybe he had to go there because of a family situation, or maybe it was an academic situation because the requirements are different. But that is the biggest difference to me, is the availability of the resources. And when you have them, you're going to attract the best. When you don't have them, it's not going to quite attract that type of athlete at that particular point in time, because he's going to have choices, and those choices are vast. And if you've seen some of the facilities that some of these people have, including us, there's millions of dollars tied up into that. It's hard not to be wooed by certain things like that when you're 17, 16, 18, 19 years old. I know I am as an adult, so I can only imagine what they are.
And what role should the parent play in the recruiting process? Should they let the coach handle it, or should they allow say, for example, the 7-on-7 coach that they might play for? What is the process that you use when dealing with the recruit, as far as the coach, the high school coach, 7-on-7 coach, and the parent?
Well, I think Sam hit on it earlier. It's based on relationships, but it's also based on communication. And that's one thing that you have to have, not only with your own kids, but you got to have with the people that are dealing with your kids' lives. Don't allow, just yourself to make that choice. It's your son, it's your daughter, somehow it's your kin. So get involved in that and understand that I need to talk to the head coach. I need to talk to his position coach. I need to know what's going on, as you would with your academics, or should with your academics. So keep that line of communication going on. And it takes a village to raise a child. I mean, that's an old saying, but it's still a very true saying. So why not know what the 7-on-7 coach recommends, and why not know what the his position coach recommends? And when people are invested, especially in a young man or a young lady's life, then they feel a part of something that's unique. Now, we all know sitting here on the screen that everyone sometimes gets overzealous and wants a bigger piece of the pie about what that decision is. In the end, that young man or that young lady needs to be the one that makes that decision, or feels really good about it, because they're the one that's going to have to go off to college somewhere and do the work, get up academically and athletically, and grow as a young person and be a productive person later on in life. So I would put it in a nutshell. I would include everybody. I mean, it's a reason why Jesus had 12 disciples, and even inside of that, he had people even in his inner circle that he trusted more than others. And it doesn't mean that they're always going to give you the greatest advice, or that doesn't always mean that they won't even turn on you. But you need to start with an inner circle, and who you let in that inner circle is based on that relationship and trust. So therefore, it's on you. You should know who's in your inner circle, but the parents have got to do a great job of communicating with people, and because our relationship is basically built mostly from that side, because we're very limited based on rules of what we can say, do to anyone at a certain time. So I would get that information out to them, obviously.
Yeah, Gunter, you talking about athletes. You're a pretty good athlete yourself. I saw a post, I think it was last spring, you playing softball with your guys, and you hit a bomb to win the game. Is that true, or is that like some video enhancing that you did there? I didn't know what happened.
It definitely wasn't enhanced, but I think the fence was shorter than it probably looked. Like that car mirror, things appear closer than it looks. I guess so the opposite of that. So I won't go too far out there. My skills are, I don't know if I ever had any skills, but they definitely diminished what little bit I've had. But they said a blind squirrel will find an acorn every now and then. So actually that bat found the ball. I just swung hard, closed my eyes, and it happened to connect. And the rest is history. But it was nice as a walk off, that's for sure.
Yeah. All right. So this is for everybody a little bit. How many people are doing honey-do list right now? Like, I feel like I've done so many projects around my house. Who's all done that? What, Brewer, tell me one thing that you're proud of the last few months that you've done around the house.
Well, in the last 24 hours, painted a workout room for my wife, and which is awesome because I'm so excited about that for her. And it did turn out very good. But what it did, it just spurred on. Well, since we got this one done, why don't we just paint the rest of the basement and the other rooms connected to it? So I have a new appreciation for people who paint for a living, and plumb and put in faucets and that kind of stuff, because that's what I've been doing. And we've just redone this basement. It was just a man cave, and then now it's turned into a shared man cave. So more of a delicate touch, I guess you say. It looks spruced up.
Well, Chris, go ahead and get involved with this, my man. I know you just got back in the car driving.
Well, can y'all hear me?
We can hear you, my man.
All right, great. Man, I have had an incredible 5 or 10 minutes here. Apparently, these people have no clue who I am because the local sheriff kind of took exception to me standing out on the football field and kind of ran me out of there. And then he locked the gate, and I had to kind of go through a construction zone just to get out. So, it's fine. It is what it is. And then I logged on, and I couldn't hear you guys. So, Coach Brewer, I've got a few questions I wanted to ask. The topic of the week last week was 7-on-7s. And we got a little bit on that. But, before I hit on that, and if anyone else touched on this, I apologize for kind of hitting you with it twice. But, in the past, I'd say decade or more, we've seen this beginning of specialization with athletes. It seemed like it really started with basketball and even baseball. And you've got those guys that their moms and dads or their coaches or travel coaches or whoever, they just want them to play one sport and not all of them. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that from a recruiting standpoint, but also just an athletic or a coaching standpoint of how you guys feel about it. And what kind of athlete would you rather have, an athlete that plays all the sports or someone who only specializes?
Well, that's good, Chris. We did hit on that slightly, but I'll tell a quick story. Justin Blackman is one of the few athletes to ever win his award, which is the Blitnikoff Best Receiver in the Nation in college twice. There's not but a couple of them out there. And we took him one of our last scholarships at Oklahoma State, and it was based off of me going to watch him play basketball. I saw him drive the lane within an explosive move. I saw him crossover dribble. I saw his handles. I just saw his competitiveness. I saw him leap, jump, jam a ball over top of a guy, and here was a kid with braces, hadn't filled out yet, good athlete, not playing at the biggest high school in his own town. They had a young man go to the other school who ended up being a first-round draft pick also. And, it's a smaller school, so people say, a smaller school, he's not playing against greatest of people. But if you dominate and do what you're supposed to do in the sport you're in, what more can you do? So, I'm a proponent. I know just in the city of Charlotte, there's so many great athletes playing so many sports that is attracting, whether it's lacrosse and football and track or basketball, this and that. And you're seeing more basketball players cross over, which thank God. I hope that continues. But we need to get all our kids more involved. That's going to promote healing. That's going to promote a lot of crossover. That's going to help race relations. It's going to help so many things if we get out of our box, and get our head out of our rear and understand these are young people. They're not grown people, all right? They need to experience things. They need to fall down and get up. They need to be, in my example, I was terrible, but I loved my senior year. I went back out for baseball, and I was a good, very good baseball player early in life, and a very good tennis player. But I dropped it and just played a couple of sports, but went back to it my senior year and really had more fun just loving the game and playing and being with teammates and doing things like that. So I would encourage, I think you should play as many sports as you can and not specialize. It worries me when people do specialize and it's the only thing they've ever done, to be honest with you. That's just my take on it.
Well, Coach, I really appreciate you coming on with us today. Like I said, if I had a chance to play, I would love to be in your room. I'm probably not talented enough to be recruited by you, but if there's anybody I'd like to be in the room with every day and learning from, it would be you. It's a real pleasure to have you on today.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and I've seen your recruiting skills by your family and including that beautiful wife you have and your kids. So I think you do rather well in the recruiting business. All you guys on here, first of all, are great people, and you care about kids, and you have a passion for what you do. And, you know, I've broken bread with most all of you, and Langston and I have had meals and talked about things, and it's crazy how these kids grow up. But we need to get the voice out there, and it all starts at your level, you know, junior high, high school, where these kids are formed with their opinions and how they view the world. So my hat's off to you. I appreciate what you do. And if there's anything we can do, myself personally or anybody here, we would love to help in any situation we can and what you got going on.
Thanks, brother. We love you, man. Thank you.
Love y'all too.